Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fourth round of the ESRA Riley Championship, powered by GT Omega Racing. Will Vincent here on commentary for this race. We are in the dying moments of qualifying. Drivers who are on lap, they will have the opportunity to complete their lap. Those of them who have come past the start-finish line, they are done for qualifying, and you see most of the cars now just rolling themselves on their last couple of corners, some bringing it onto pit road just to test in their pit entry and exit for the race itself. Racing here today at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, it's 4.35 miles in length. It's got 21 corners. It is one of the meccas of all of motorsports. Everyone knows it. The corner names, they roll off the tongue. You got La Source, you got Air Rouge, Radio, Lacombe, Fognier, Thouan, the bus stop chicane, Stavelot, Blanchimont. All the famous corners are here. And we've got, of course, a ton of drivers looking to claim victory as well. Right now, it is Jonathan Di Clemente who has provisional pole position. It looks as though that no one's really going to be able to go faster than him. The only guy who's on a really fast lap right now, that is Rens Broekman in the number 84 car. He is working himself down in towards the bus stop chicane at the moment. Let's see whether he can improve his qualifying. We've got Spa-Francorchamps as well. Currently scored 10th. He's working himself out of the bus stop chicane. He will come past the start-finish line. Let's see whether he can improve his time. The answer there is he improves his time, but doesn't improve his position. Rens Broekman does not improve his time, so he will be where he is, and that means all the cars have now completed a lap. So we're going to head it down to the grid, and you see the iRacing.com pace car is sat on the entrance to Blanchimont. Right, your grid. Jonathan Di Clemente, time of 2 minute 9.836. He scores pole position. Diego Comini in second. Andre Misario and Amanda Palumbo in row number 3. Rens Broekman and Aero Nom in row number 3. And then it's David Ward and Vivian Kapler in row 4. Thomas Van Boosel, Sasso Prosen in row 5. Andy Goodison and Danny Kickins in row number 6. Arjun Shapers and Fred Joseph in row number 7. Andre Demikis and Oliver Kotak in row 8. Andrea Bernardi and Peter Ridley in row 9. And Robert Wright and Peter Jensen, they are in row number 10. Today, we'll be racing for 45 minutes around this track. Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. The drivers love it, the fans love it. It always produces some of the greatest racing in all of motorsports, be it in Formula 1, be it in GT racing, be it pretty much anything they put onto those racetracks. The guys, the cars, the drivers, they all enjoy it, and the cars right now are lined up on the grid. So then, today we have a total of 33 cars who have entered the race. A couple of them are not going to be starting it. It looks like Marcus Brissi, Nicolas Sosan and Jose Almeida will not be starting the race. That will leave us 30 cars on the grid. So it's going to be very tight for the first couple of corners. Of course, down into La Source. It's the slowest corner on the racetrack. It's one of the slowest corners in all of motorsports. And the cars, they've got to slow the cars down to about 35 miles an hour. From there, it will be flat out all the way down the hill. Flick it to the left for Air Rouge, then to the right, up Radio, down the Camel straightaway before you make that hard braking zone down into Lacombe. And if you Di Clemente up front, you really are going to want to have a pretty sizable lead, because of course the draft can be so big at this racetrack. You see right now, the cars are working themselves. It's a very short pace lap here, so if these guys want to warm up their tyres, they've not got much time to get the job done. Your top 3 once again, Jonathan Di Clemente, Diego Comini and Andrea Misario. And the 30 cars are now heading themselves down into the bus stop chicane. It's one of those corners right here where you can't really go double file. And this is going to spread the field out a little bit. You see Comini gets himself side by side with Di Clemente once again. We are here, Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, ESRA. We are green as the cars all come down into turn number 1. for the first time, and Di Clemente gets himself a good start. Comini slots in right behind him. Aeronom's getting up 2 positions at the start of this race. David Ward right now are on the inside, and as they come into turn number 2, Air Rouge for the first time, Ward's on the inside, and it will complete the pass there on Andre Massario, who started this race in 3rd, is now running in about the 6th position on the racetrack. We've got some huge passing going on behind him. Andy Goodison is on the move. Sasso Prosen is on the move. One guy is losing out. That is Renz Brokeman as they come down into Le Coup for the first time, 3 wide. You've got Face Locale, Jonathan Di Clemente from the race lead, and it looks as though he might have cut the course there. He got himself a slowdown penalty. That was coming, yes he did, as he came up the hill through Radio, and that meant he had to relinquish the race lead. He is now running well down the field, and you had a couple of cars going sideways as well. You had one car in particular who lost it, and that was Tom Cable, and he then caused second contact with Jose Carlos Campanico, and Carlos is out of the race. So we've got a couple of retirees early on, but as it stands right now, your new race leader, it is Diego Comini, as he works himself into the fungus chicane for the first time. Mambo Palumbo in 2nd position. Aero Nom, he started 6th, now working himself in the 3rd position. David Ward, he started 7th, now running in the 4th position. Andre Massario, he lost 2 positions at the start of this race. Vivian Kaplan in the 6th position, then Sasso Prosen in 7th, Renz Broken 8th, and then in the 9th position is Jonathan Di Clemente, who started this race from the pole position. So that one little incident that happened as he works himself through running on lap number 1, that cost him 8 spots on the racetrack, and it shows just how you have to nail every phase of those first couple of corners. Picture perfect. Diego Comini comes through, and he will complete his first lap of the race as your leader, and in the 2nd position, I say, behind him, it looks as though it is Mambo Palumbo in that number 76 machine. So they work themselves down the hill once again to give you an update on the guys who are on pit road. You have Jose Carlos Campanico in the number 44 car. He is on pit road. Severe damage likely will be out of the race. It's like Tom Cable, he had the contact there. He got T-Bone, he's got a car who is spun around down other source. That is Andre D'Amicis, who was in the 15th position, now falls to the rear of the field and almost caught Cable. I think actually did cut Cable out, as Oliver Kozak also goes wide there at the source on lap number 2. He had a little bit of passing, by the way. It looks like Peter Wrigley got himself past Theo Van Brink, and as they work themselves now into the centre part of the racetrack once again, it's a Comini putting out about a 9 tenths of a second lead right now over Mambo Palumbo. In the 3rd position, Aeronom is a further 1.5 seconds back, and David Ward is starting to close up now in that battle for the final spot on the podium. Massario only a further 3 tenths of a second back from David Ward, and he rounds out your top 5. So down they come into the fungus chicane once again. We'll give you an update on Di Clemente. It looks as though he might be out of the race. Indeed, Di Clemente is out of the race. So he went into the wall at Air Rouge, and that is the 2nd time there's been an issue for Jonathan Di Clemente. This time, we saw it on your screen. His car, it just went straight on as he came on the crest. He hit the curve. It looks like that broke the steering, slammed. That reminds me of Jacques Villeneuve and Ricardo Sonta back at the 1999 Belgium Grand Prix. Di Clemente slammed into the wall, onto the roof, and the Infinity Esports car is out of the race. So he started on pole position, did Di Clemente, in that number 43 car. He is now out, and he will be classified probably down in about the 29th position come the end of this race. But I tell you what, the battle, it now kicks up out front, and this is between, of course, Renz Brokeman, not Renz Brokeman, I take that back. That is between Palumbo and Comini, but David Ward goes down to the inside of Aeronom. They're going to be too wide as they come out of the source. Now, if Ward just backs out the throttle a little bit, he won't have to go side by side into Air Rouge Radio, but he is going to stick there. Now you see he rolls out the throttle. What this does, it gives him a better run coming out of the corner, but Ward goes a little bit sideways there on the curve as it comes out of Radio. He will lose momentum there. If you do it properly, roll out the gas a little bit so you go behind. You'll get that draft all the way down the long Kemmel straightaway. But you see, that time David Ward was not able to make any inroads. But that battle for the race lead between Palumbo and Comini. Palumbo in the second position, Comini running in first. The two Team GT cars are now separated by less than half a second on the racetrack, and Palumbo is looking very strong right now. Last time by, he was 0.2 of a second faster than Diego Comini on that second lap, as of course they work himself now down into once again. Double Apex left-hander here. You've got to get on the brakes for the first bit. You don't want to lose too much speed, however, because it's all about momentum in those corners. The second part is flat out. Brake as late as you can, modifying as you can. First flicking it to the right, then set yourself up to move to the left-hand side, and then bring the car back to the right, and now move to the left-hand side once again as you come down into Stavolo. It's another double Apex right-hander. You run the curve on the first bit, then you flat out pretty much all the way through the second part. You'll use that runoff area if you need to, as you saw both Comini and Palumbo doing. And now you're pretty much going to be flat out all the way through Blanchimont and that run down to the bus stop chicane. You can tell that Palumbo is probably running a slightly lower downforce setting than Comini, because he did close up in the first part of that run to the bus stop. But as they came down into Blanchimont, he lost out a little bit. That car perhaps not handling as well in the fast speed corners. Comini, he will come by and he will complete lap number 3 as your leader, but Palumbo is right there in the second position. And to give you an update on the battle behind, it looks like that Aeronom and David Ward are continuing to fight, but that last lap alone, they lost about a second to your race leaders, and it does look as though that Aeronom is holding up David Ward a little bit, and that is bringing the 89 car of Andre Massario back into the picture right now, and the 89 car is listed as 1 second behind that battle, but David Ward gets a much better run. He's going to get a slowdown penalty perhaps. This was very close, him getting a slowdown. He will move it to the outside line. He thinks better of it, and now you see he just had to get out of the throttle there, losing himself half a second, maybe a little bit more. He'll take a slower line down into Lacombe as well, and he's the second driver in the top 5 to have a slowdown penalty coming out of the Aerodrome complex. As Massario will go past David Ward and move himself up into the 4th position, and also Vivian Caplet will move his spot up as well. So David Ward, after having a good start, loses 2 positions there, in the same way that Dick Clemente lost 8 at the start of the race. And I'll talk you through that rule the next time we go through Air Rouge as well. Your top 10, Diego Comini from Mambo Palumbo from Aeronom. Now in the 4th position is Andrew Massaio, up 1 position. Vivian Caplet now up 1 position. David Ward down 2 positions in 6th. Renz Brokeman in 7th. Sasa Frozen in 8th. Andy Goodison running in 9th. And then it is Danny Keekins rounding out your top 10. Just having a look, we've got more cars on pit road. Fred Joseph has had an issue on the racetrack. Jochen Rodin is also on pit road as well. So a slightly lower attrition rate than we would have maybe expected at the start of this race, but especially the fact that we've got some very slow corners to start the race. Of course, as I said, you have La Source, then you have the run down into Lacombe as well, and it seems as though the majority of cars have been able to get through unscathed, but you have some great battles going up and down the field. Of course, that battle for the race lead. Yo, Aerodrome goes sideways, that is down at the bus stop chicane. That might give Massario a chance to close that gap up a little bit, but Massario was a little bit too far back as they worked himself out of the bus stop, but ahead of them, this battle for the race lead does continue, and this is what I'm talking about, by the way. As we come down, you see, you'll go through Air Rouge, that first left-hand kick, and then flick it to the right-hand side, then back to the left as you go through Radio. Now pay attention here, on the left-hand side, you see those white lines on the curb? You have to have at least 2 wheels on the curb at all times. If more than half the car is on those white painted lines, then you'll get yourself a slowdown penalty. Of course, it's a big departure from days gone by. We used to have a gravel trap there, and it really was one of the most breathtaking corners in the world. Safety regulations, it's calmed it down a little bit. You can be a lot more aggressive knowing that you only have to slow down. You're not going to have a high-speed accident, but still, one of the most famous corners in all of racing. Very quickly, we're going to check in on the battle for 10th position as Thomas Van Boosel just slings past Danny Keekins, moving himself up into the 10th position. Now, Thomas Van Boosel started this race in the 9th spot. He fell down about 3 positions at the start of the race, moving himself up the sport now in that Danielson Motorsports car. And it does look as though he is starting to close the gap up on the cars around him just a little bit. I take it back, by the way, he's in an Infinity Esports car. Don't know why I said that. But Thomas van Boekel in the number 90 car now back up into the top 10 in the race. He has, however, got a 4-second gap to close to his next victim, which will be Andy Goodison. However, last time by, Andy Goodison did a 2-minute 13.5. Compare that to Thomas van Boekel's 2-minute 12.9, of course, closing up in that dirty air as well. And that gap has come down about 2 tenths per second in this lap alone. And it'll be interesting to see how long it would take for Van Boekel to start putting pressure on Andy Goodison in that number 11 machine. We'll go back to your battle for the race lead. And of course, this is between Comini and Palumbo. We're just going to have another look to see whether or not Palumbo can close up this time. As Comini goes a little bit sideways, this will be the best chance for Palumbo. The gap right now is scored at just 2 tenths of a second. You will see that Palumbo is going to be all over the rear of Comini as they come down into Air Rouge, that left-hand flick, then to the right again. Now they're up the hill, through Radio, now onto the Kenworth straightaway, and Palumbo, in that dirty air, loses about a tenth of a second, and he loses momentum there as well. Palumbo is doing about 175 miles an hour, so he's going about 3 miles an hour faster, but I did see him just back out of the throttle there towards the end of the Kenworth straightaway, so it does look as though he is happy to sit behind Diego Comini for the time being. So perhaps Palumbo is just going to let this one roll through to the first circle of pit stops. Perhaps try and see if he can go an extra lap as he goes a little bit wide there down at Rivage. Of course, though, they are pulling away, though, from Aero Nom. That last time by, Palumbo was a full 6 tenths of a second faster than Aero Nom in that number 3 car, currently running in the 3rd position on the racetrack. And Andrew Masario is about 6 tenths of a second further back, who runs in that 4th position. And by the way, Vivian Caplet, he's just allowed David Ward, he's just let David Ward go past. Something's happened on this lap, but Caplet then goes sideways. And actually, both David Ward and Caplet lose it on the same corner there. That is the corner just before Puo. And it looks as though David Ward, he got himself sideways on the exit of the corner. He just touched a curb, actually, as he was on the apex. That slid the car wide on apex. He brushed the wall. I'm interested to see if there's any damage to him. But then Vivian Caplet, whether it was a sympathy spin or whether he also just got loose, or perhaps he's trying to avoid David, he allowed a car to go past. That was Sasso Prosen there, and that was all because of the fact that he got sideways down before Pouin as well. He tried to make the move back, and he did it on the outside of the Farnley chicane. Did he hold it down? You know he didn't. So Vivian Caplet then falls down into what is now going to be 7th position on the racetrack. And he's trying once again. We're going to stay with this battle for the time being to see whether or not he can get that position back. It does look as though he has. So now it is Caplet ahead of Sasso Prosen. But Prosen's not going to give this one up too much easier. He's going to try and look down to the inside into that source. Not going to happen this time. But perhaps Prosen has a little bit more under the tank and this long run up to Lecumbe. Gap is scored at 6 tenths of a second on the racetrack between P6, Vivian Caplet, and P7, Sasso Prosen. And as they work themselves up the hill, that time it did look as though Caplet was very close to the boundary of the track edge, and Prosen's closed that gap by 2 tenths of a second, up to 7 miles an hour. Vivian Caplet was doing a lot slower, and that gap came down to about 3 tenths of a second on the racetrack. We'll go back to that one a little bit later on in the race. Gonna check in right now on your battle for P13, P14 on the racetrack. That is between Nick Phillips and Peter Ridley. Now, last time by, Peter Ridley did a 2-minute 13.689. Compare that to 2:14.385 for Nick Phillips in the number 4 car. Now, Peter Ridley, his fastest lap of the race is being very similar to Nick Phillips. There's a car who's off the side of the road there, down on the run into Rivage. I'll get confirmation of who that is in just one moment's time. And I'm getting word now that it's Vivian Caplet there, and who went wide, and this was all, he had all forms of issues into the corner after Lacunga, he just lost the car, went sideways, smashed into the wall in that Team France car. And it looks as though that he is out of the race. So Vivian Caplet, who was battling with Spa-Francorchamps, is now classified as out of the race. But that battle between Phillips and Peter Ridley, it continues as they work themselves back down into the chicane. And also Spa-Francorchamps had a spin as well. And he has got all forms of damage to his rear spoiler. Now we are getting word that that was at the same place at Lacune that they went off. In fact, it was actually in Lacune. Spa-Francorchamps outbroke himself, just caught a curb on entry, spun that car around. He got light damage there to the right rear of his car. He does continue, however. So Prosen had issues, and then Caplet in the following corner, he had the issues and he went off. But Peter Ridley's going to try and go. He's very aggressive there. He will make the pass happen. And he was on the inside into the bus stop chicane, and he gets himself past Nick Phillips before they make it down into La Lassour's hairpin. So move Peter Ridley now up into P12 in this race. So let's run through some of the big moments of this race so far. Of course, the first one of them, it has got to be Jonathan Di Clemente. Started the race on pole position. He had that slowdown penalty, which put him back down into the 9th position on the race. Lap number 2, coming down into Air Rouge, clips the curb. It must have just broke the steering on the car. He went straight on into the tyre barrier. Huge impact for him. He went out of the race. Then you had the issue with Spa-Francorchamps, and you also had an issue at the same time with Vivian Caplet. Spa-Francorchamps, he spun his car down at the Lacune complex, and he damaged his right rear. However, he is able to carry on. Vivian Caplet, however, is out of the race. Let's not forget as well, David Ward had some issues. He had a slowdown penalty, and then he also had a slight moment with the wall in the corner just before you come down into Pouin, which cost him and also gave him a little bit of damage as well. But he's now running back up in the 5th position, and it's starting to be that stage of the race where people are starting to fall out, because Andy Goodison has moved up about 2, maybe 3 positions. In fact, he's been able to get himself past Spa-Francorchamps in that last lap. And Prosen's last lap was a 2:20.145. And having a look, it looks as though he really is struggling. And he might bring that car onto pit road this time by in that number 75 machine, because he really is struggling. He had to go down to 154 miles an hour into Blanchimont. Normally that corner is flat out. You just lose something because of the fact that you've got the engine and the turning. It just slows the car down a little bit. Of course, if you watch oval racing, you know you can enter the corner, you lose about 4 or 5 miles an hour just as the speed rubs off as you run through it. But Spa-Francorchamps, as I say, he's now down into 7th position, and Thomas Van Boosel only 1.1 seconds back, and I expect Boosel to be able to get past before they get down into Lacune. We'll go on board with Thomas Van Boosel in the number 19 machine as they run it up the hill. Let's have a look. This is where it would really hurt Prosen. The gap's down into 1 second. Doesn't look as though that Van Boosel really is closing up that much. And in fact, last time by, Spa-Francorchamps did do a 2:12.6. So perhaps the damage isn't as bad as we expected there for Spa-Francorchamps in that number 75 car. He is, however, now scored out of the top 5, running in the 7th position in the race. Diego Comini, by the way, has just gone very wide, and that was down at Pouin. And that's going to allow Palumbo the chance, if he wants to make the pass. He's going to try and go around the outside into Fangya. You can't make that happen. But Palumbo, it does look as though he's not putting too much pressure on Diego Comini. Because Comini made a mistake, Palumbo thought, okay, I'll put my car there just in case you make another one. It was in a risky position, because if Comini had actually outbroke himself into the Fangya chicane, then Palumbo would have been out of the race. Perhaps Comini would have been out of the race as well. So, you've got to be careful on that section of the racetrack, but Palumbo still in 2nd, and Diego Comini still runs in the 1st position, as we'll have about 20 minutes of the race scored complete as these guys come past the start-finish line. The first bit of lap traffic is going to be Joachim Rodin, running the 68 car. He is scored 4 laps down right now, just trying to make himself up some positions. Your retirees, Jose Carlos Campadinho, Franklin Steglek is out of the race. Pierre Charnet is out of the race. Andre D'Amicis is out of the race. Of course, Jonathan Di Clemente, Owen Shapers, is out of the race. Fred Joseph is out on pit road getting some repairs to his race car. Vivian Caplet out of the race, and they are your drivers. So we have 21 guys scored on the lead lap right now. Caplet is currently scored 1 lap down, but he is retired and he is out of this race. So 20 minutes of this race scored complete. It'll be interesting to see what happens with strategy over the next 10 to 15 minutes when guys will make that journey down on towards pit road, which will be their one and only pit stop. Of course, fuel is limited to just 12 gallons in this series, which means that all drivers will have to make one stop. And of course, because this is the longest track that we go to in the ESRA European Sim Racing Association series, what it means is that you have to make sure that you get all the fuel that you need to do that extra lap if you need to. And so often at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, having to do that extra lap catches out so many of these drivers, and it can be a difference normally between 2 to 3 seconds of the guy crossing the start finish line or not. And that will be a truly interesting thing to see a little bit later on in this race. But we're going to have a look at Nick Phillips and Peter Ridley once again. And Peter Ridley looks like he's fallen back behind Nick Phillips now in that 6th car, and that's all going to change very quickly as Dan and Rivard, looks like Jensen went very wide. I take it back, it was Peter, it is actually Nick Phillips and Peter Ridley, because Ridley has lost something out on this lap, fallen back behind Phillips in that number 4 car. I'll get confirmation on what that is in just one moment. But the gap between those two drivers is currently scored as 4/10 of a second on the racetrack. And it does look as though it was a slowdown penalty there for Peter Ridley. Either that or perhaps Phillips just got the job done. In fact, no, it does look as though it was a slowdown penalty there for Peter Ridley in that number 6 car. He was throttling back as they worked himself down the Kemmel straightaway. And it looks as though now he has not yet been able to get that job done. Something's actually happened to Ridley. That was down at the Farnham chicane. Yeah, and in fact, down at the Farnham chicane, you probably saw it on your screens there. Ridley comes into the corner, uses the curb on entry, that spins the car around, into the gravel he goes, into the grass he goes, taps the wall, and that could be a huge difference maker there for Peter Ridley, as Fier de Brink goes past him, and Robert White was very close behind, but wasn't quite able to get the pass done, and you just saw there, Ridley was able to get past Fier de Brink there as well, moving himself back up into the 13th position on the racetrack. So it's all going a little bit pear-shaped right now for Peter Ridley in that number 6 car, but we'll check back in on him in a little bit in this race, as we're now at halfway distance. And of course, this is the 4th round of the ESRA Riley Championship, presented by GT Omega Racing. From here, the circuit to Spa-Francorchamps. Let's run through your top 10. Diego Comini still with less than 1 second of an advantage over Amando Palumbo. Aero Nom running in the 3rd position. Andrew Massario running in 4th. Now Nom and Massario are still passing on the racetrack. There's just 3/10 of a second between those two drivers. And David Ward is running in the 5th position. However, it's 3/10 of a second further back. And actually, I take that back. Massario has been able to get past Aero Nom on this lap, and Nom is looking very racy down to the inside, and somehow they're able to keep it too wide for Blanchimont, and this never ever ends well. Aero Nom tries to get the pass done, wasn't able to do so. Massario hangs on to that 3rd position down into the bus stop chicane. But what happened there with Aero Nom? It looks as though that he got the pass done on Massario, and then, no, he was ahead of Massario, but then down at Stavolo, it looks as though that is where Massario was able to get past, because Aero Nom ran wide. Massario's fault, thank you very much. Oh, slowed it down the inside into Stavolo too. He moved himself up into 3rd position, but Aero Nom was not willing to give it up that easily. Planted his car down to the inside on that left-hand kick before you come down into Blanchimont, and he tried it. And I tell you what, those two cars at 100 and something miles an hour did try their very hardest. However, Massario is able to keep that 3rd position on the racetrack, and that is where he still runs as we've got 20 minutes left on the play clock. And it's going to be an interesting battle for the last part of this race, because as it stands right now, Diego Comini he's only got a 0.6 gap, but Mama Palumbo looks like he's been saving fuel out front just a little bit in the draft from Diego Comini. Of course, you can save a ton of fuel here. It's so fast that if you just run the car at 80% throttle on some of these long straightaways, you'll stay right there behind, but you'll save a ton of fuel in doing so. And if Palumbo wants to do like one extra lap, it could be a huge difference maker after we come through pit stops. And I say, we're probably about 5 minutes away before we see many of these guys diving down on towards pit road. There are some guys on pit road right now. You have Tom Cable, Theodore Brink on pit road. So those two guys are going to come out. Cable's actually been in there for a while, but Brink, as I say, he's just bringing his car out in the number 52 car, driving for Club Benelux. And Cable, has something happened to him? Or is this a standard, just very long stop? Having a look, indeed, no, it does look as though that something is terminal with Tom Cable's car, and it is on the front left, we're getting word that has happened to him, and he's been on pit road for quite a while now. By the way, Peter Jensen has also made a pit stop. Robert White has also come onto pit road. But of course, the important thing that we're looking for is to see what happens with your race leaders. But Aeronom is on pit road. Aeronom is on pit road, and also David Ward is on pit road. And I tell you what, Ward has closed that gap right there. And it looks like David Ward's closed that gap to less than half a second. Now, Ward is very good on pit stops, so he can get himself out. He'll be right there, perhaps able to leapfrog Aeronom. Into their box they go. Fuel only for Nom. And it looks like Ward's going to have to take a little bit long. He's going to lose a ton of time. Did David Ward get a speeding penalty there? It looks as though that could be the case. So having a look back on the replay, as you hit the pit cone, you've got to be down at 37 miles an hour. He was down at 37 miles an hour. He is back out into the racetrack. But that was a very long stop there for David Ward. And I'm intrigued to see why that took an extra 3 or 4 seconds. And just having a look back at the replay there on pit road, it did seem to be a lot longer there for David Ward. He didn't take tyres. Maybe he just had to fill the tank up to the max, and that will hurt David Ward, and he could hurt him a position or two a little bit later on in this race. Of course, the two guys we now want to see on pit road, remember Palumbo running second, Diego Comini running in the first position. We are thinking that maybe David Ward took those extra seconds. Of course, he did have that incident out in the corner just after Rivage on about lap 6 of this race. And we're thinking he might just wanted to get the repair done for that, just get it bent back into shape so he can make a charge in the second half of this run. Because he was losing time to the likes of Nom ahead of him on the racetrack. And of course, also Andrea Massario. Let's see whether Comini comes in. No, he doesn't. But Palumbo comes in this time by. So Mambo Palumbo, we thought that he was going to go a lap longer. He comes in a lap earlier. Of course, it doesn't matter because he saved a little bit of fuel. Now to put a little bit less into the tank, and that could be the difference maker, as you still have repairs happening to Cable and Joseph's car on pit road. For Palumbo, it's 37 miles an hour. Let's see if he can go through without any incidents. And by the way, Messiah goes past and doesn't make a pit stop either. So for the time being, Messiah moves himself up into the second position on the racetrack. But Palumbo looks to be a good stop for him, and he is out and away. So let's see where Palumbo will fall in. It should just be into a net third position. Sasso Prosen is coming down into La Source right now. And indeed, yeah, Palumbo is back out onto the racetrack. And Cable has brought his car back onto the racetrack as well. Sasso Prosen was able to get past without any incidents. But there are a couple of damaged cars right now. Leland on the Surf, for example, Tom Cable, both have some issues to their race car. They are pushing on for the time being. When we are still waiting to see what is going to happen with Comini and Messiah. Importantly, can Comini stay ahead of Palumbo on this cycle of pit stops? Guys who we haven't yet seen on pit road. We haven't yet seen Diego Comini. We haven't yet seen Andre Messiah. We have, by the looks of it, not even seen Spa-Francorchamps as well, who's currently scored in the 4th position on the racetrack. Danny Keekins, we haven't seen him on pit road yet. We expect to see him at some point soon. Andre Benadi also yet hasn't made a pit stop on the racetrack, currently running in the 7th position, but is being caught rapidly by that number 69 car of David Ward. So, down that long, fast, sweeping run towards the bus stop chicane. That involves Blanchard. Of course, it is the corner that basically ended Thomas Enger's career back in 2001. And again, it's one of those corners that they've paved off the same way they paved off the corner at Air Rouge Radio. Comini stays out for another lap of this race with Lorenzo Cobetti, which is getting out of the way there of Andrew Massario. Massario this time comes on pit road. So, 2 laps longer than Aero Nom in the free car. Let's see if it makes a difference. Down to 37 miles an hour. Very conservative on pit entry, but again, so was Aero Nom conservative on his pit entry as well. Aero Nom is currently about to enter the bus stop chicane. He's got some traffic ahead of him. He's going to try and force the issue with Tom Cable. He will get himself past, and every second counts right now. And let's see where Messiah will feed back out into things. Again, slightly longer on his pit stop. Here comes Aero Nom. Messiah is out and away. Of course, it's a tighter apex through La Source, but Aero Nom doesn't look as though he's going to get the job done. He'll get better traction out the corner. This will bring him back down to about a second behind, but it does look as though that Andrew Messiah was able to stay ahead of Aero Nom for that sequence of pit stops. As I say, perhaps that might just have been because Nom was so conservative on the way in. We saw how he had about a 3-second gap to Ward, but then he just lost that all on that pit entry. And even though Messiah had a conservative entry himself, Aero Nom stays in what will potentially be a net 4th, maybe 5th position on the racetrack. Let's check in very quickly on the battle going on for I'll take that back. I'm going to start again. Let's check in on your race leader, the number 21 machine of Diego Comini, because we expect him to definitely come down this time by. He just comes out of Stavolo once again. That number 21 Team GT car started this race in the 2nd position on the racetrack. Of course, he got the race lead before they came down into Lacune because Jonathan Di Clemente had that slowdown penalty, which occurred as he went, putting more than 2 wheels on the left-hand side of the curb. And here comes Diego Comini from the race lead. Will he be able to keep at the gap? Right now, he's 24.5 seconds on the racetrack between himself and the 28 seconds actually between himself and Amando Palumbo. So this will be interesting. Got to keep an eye out to see where Palumbo is on the racetrack. He is storming through Blanchimont right now. His outlap was a 227.9. As Palumbo actually had an issue on this lap, here comes Comini into his pit box, and he is going to top up with fuel. Of course, he won't have to take much. He's only got 12 minutes or so left of this race. He is out and away, and Palumbo is nowhere to be seen as Comini is going to come out, and he is going to be a full 4 seconds ahead of Amando Palumbo. So Comini made it all up there on the sequence of pit stops. Fascinating thing there. And he's able to pull out a huge lead over Amando Palumbo. And I did just say, it did look as though Palumbo had a slightly sluggish outlap. I'm just seeing if anything happened to him on that outlap at all. I don't really see anything. It just must look as though he had a sluggish pit exit. He had to follow a car out of pit road, then down into Air Rouge, and that cost him a little bit of time there. So that is what happened with Amando Palumbo. And we'll compare the outlaps. It was a 2-minute 27 outlap there for Amando Palumbo. Well, of course, we'll get confirmation of what Diego Comini's outlap is in just a moment. And Andre Massario, again, about a 227. So it must really have just been a hard charge there by Comini on his in-lap. And just having a look, his fastest lap of the race, he set that just before he came onto pit road. It's a 2-minute 10.814 for him. So cars we haven't yet seen on pit road. Danny Keekins hasn't yet pitted by the look of it. Running right now in the 5th position on the racetrack in the number 47 car. just getting confirmation that he hasn't yet made that journey onto pit road, and the answer is no. So he's the main car out of the top 10 we haven't yet seen on pit road. We also, I believe, haven't yet seen Spa-Francorchamps, but no, Prosen has now made a pit stop. I think he just had a very slow lap, so I believe he has made his pit stop and is back out onto the racetrack. So for Spa-Francorchamps, yeah, he's made his pit stop now. So the cars we haven't seen really are the six car we're looking at right now, Peter Ridley and Andy Goodison, because that battle looked as though it was going to improve itself again, but it's not. It's kind of calmed down for the time being. It's now actually between the 10 and the 11 cars on the racetrack. Andy Goodison and Rens Brokerman. Brokerman running in the number 84 car, Andy Goodison running in the number 11. And it does look as though that Brokerman has been able to get himself past Andy Goodison on this circuit of the racetrack. So move Andy Goodison out of the top 10 now, and move Rens Brokerman knocking on the door of getting himself a top 10 finish in this race. Comini's outlap, by the way, it's a 226.981, so a very fast outlap there for Diego Comini, which has stretched the lead out now. About 3.5 seconds on the racetrack, so good outlap there for the 21 car. And just to give you an update, Danny Keekins is now on pit road. Let's see where he feeds in. The cars that are close to him, Rens Brokerman, he will get out ahead of Rens Brokerman. He can now floor the gas. He can now take the inside line of La Source. He comes out just ahead of Rens Brokerman. So put Danny Keekin in about the 9th position on the racetrack. By the way, there's been an issue. This is why. This is the issue with Andy Goodison, which dropped him out of the top 10. He had a spin, which has now dropped him down to about 13th position on the racetrack. So Andy Goodison, after having a first good half of the race, let's not forget, he qualified at 11th, was running in the top 10 at one part, now runs outside the top 10 in that Isle of Man car, running himself down in the 13th position on the racetrack. And it looks as though that Andy Goodison really is struggling right now. So now things have calmed themselves down. Let's take a moment and let's run through your top 10 drivers. Diego Comini still leads the way. Emmanuel Palumbo still runs second. Messiah takes a net third position. He got himself a 2.5 second advantage over Aeronom for that sequence of pit stops. David Ward runs in the 5th position right now. In 6th, it is, I'll take this back, looks as though it's Thomas Van Boosel now running in the 6th position. In the 7th position is Spa-Francorchamps. 8th is now going to be Peter Ridley, and then in the 9th position is Denny Heckins, and then rounding out your top 10 is Rens Brokerman. However, we've got a battle on our hands right now between Heckins and also Rens Brokerman. Rens Brokerman will be very good on these last stages of the races. He's going to perhaps look to the inside. He thinks better of it into the first part of Blanchimont. Let's see if he can close the gap as they come through Blanchimont itself, and that run to the bus stop chicane. Looks like Rens Brokerman much better run. Will he dive it down the inside? The answer is going to be yes, but then he pulls out at the last second, and he will stay in that 10th position for the time being. But this is a great battle right now developing. As I say, this is for 9th position on the racetrack, and we know how good, say 8th position on the racetrack, between Danny Keekins and Rens Brokerman. As Peter Ridley, it does look as though he's now on pit road. He was the last guy to pit. Peter Ridley brings his car onto pit road, and that will move him probably outside of the top 10. In fact, Peter Ridley looks like he's going to come out around Andy Goodison to possibly 14th position on the racetrack. But Ridley is out and away by the look of it, as Brokerman goes around the outside of Danny Keegan. It's going to be the last of the late breakers. Brokerman is going to complete the pass, so Team Benelux driver over Team Benelux driver, and Brokerman wins that battle, moving himself up into 8th position on the racetrack. And for Brokerman, it was a bit of a sluggish start for him. He started 5th, fell way down at the start of the race. We documented it a little bit earlier on. Now he's moved himself back up into 8th position. However, this late into the game, his next victim is 14.7 seconds up the road by the look of it. And that is going to be Sasso Prosen in the number 75 car. Now, Prosen is running a little bit off pace. He had that issue earlier on, the damage to the right part of his rear spoiler, but Prosen's still able to carry on that number 75 car. Unless he puts a foot wrong, Brokeman will not be able to improve any further in this race. Give you an update, by the way, very quickly on Peter Ridley. He fell out just behind Andy Goodison, so that battle might continue, that run to the flag. Goodison now running himself in the 13th position. Peter Ridley relegated into the 14th spot on the racetrack. Just having a look at the times, by the way, it does look as though we're going to have ourselves 3 laps left of this race. Diego Comini has got himself about 4 minutes 15 seconds on the play clock. He's doing lap times of 2 minutes 11, which would mean he's about 45 seconds into the lap, so he will get the white flag as he's working himself down into the Air Rouge Radio complex. So he'll have about 15 seconds left as he crosses the start finish line. Not this lap, the lap afterwards. So 2.5 laps left of this race to go. The gap, by the way, has come down. It's now 2.1 seconds between Comini and Palumbo. Palumbo setting lap times in the 2 minute 10s all of a sudden. Comini only being able to do 2 minute 11.6s. Perhaps Comini just having to save a tiny bit of fuel to get himself to the end of the race. Either that, or it could just be the fact that Comini knows the fact he's leading this race in that number 21 Team GT car. He knows himself. He's got the number 76 Team GT car running in the second position. He also knows that Andrew Massario is running in the third position, also a Team GT car. So we're going to have a Team GT sweep of the podium here today at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and the Rocket Design car looking as though it is going to do incredibly well here. It's a track that seems to have suited these guys. They've been fast out of the box. Let's not forget, those 3 drivers qualified in 2nd, 3rd and 4th positions on the racetrack, so good in qualifying. No real match for Jonathan Di Clemente, but in race pace have been incredibly consistent, and we haven't really seen any issues from them at all in this race. And just let's say that Palumbo getting a little bit sideways coming out of the corner, La Source there, and Comini's got some lap traffic ahead of him right now, and that is a yellow car. It's Thomas Vatpark in the number 71 car, just holds it down to the inside line. Diego Comini's going to go around the outside him, and that will set him back out on his way. And by the way, we would expect to see the white flag come out about here on the next lap. So just like come out of Lacombe, that is where Comini will get word that time has expired, and that will be the run towards the end of the race. Gonna run through some of your retirees one more time very quickly. We talked about Jose Carlos Campodonico, who is out of the race in the 44th car. Franklin Steknik out of the race. Pierre Charnay, Jonathan Di Clemente, Andrea Demikis, Arjen Shepard, Fred Joseph, Vivian Caplet, Joachim Rodin, Tom Cable, all out of the race. Lorenzo Gabetti is scored 1 lap down but circulating. Leon Lesseur scored 1 lap down circulating. Thomas Vetbach now also scored 1 lap down but still circulating on the racetrack. And for those of you who are just joining us, of course, the 4th round of the ESRA Riley Championship powered by GT Omega Racing, and the biggest story of the day really has to be Jonathan Di Clemente, who had that moment on the run up the hill for the first time. That's what's really costed him the chance, because he got himself back into traffic, and then he had that issue down into Air Rouge. We'll get ourselves a replay of that again after the race, and we'll show it to you in the GlacierTV X-Low cam. But it just seemed to be when he came down into Air Rouge, he hit the curve on the left-hand side. It must have just damaged the steering or something. He just ploughed straight on into the tyre barriers. A horrible impact landed on his roof. Of course, he is out of the race, and we'll have to wait for 2 weeks' time to see what happened to him. But Comini, he's now starting your last lap of the race. And to give you a final confirmation on what the update is right now, it is up to 3.5 seconds once again on the racetrack. Last time by, Palumbo needed 2:12.846. Of course, I talked about how he got himself a little bit sideways out of La Source on the previous lap. Of course, Palumbo still has himself a 10-second gap to Andre Massario, who runs in that 3rd position. Just having a look through the field very quickly, I don't think there's any real battles that are going to develop on this final lap. It's got kind of spread out. As you look towards the bottom end of the top 10, Rens Broekman, as you see now, the time has expired. Rens Broekman, he is about 5 seconds ahead of Danny Heckins. Peter Jensen is about 7 seconds ahead of, behind Danny Heckins. And there's a 4-second gap between Jensen and Branidi. And then about 7-second gap between Branidi and Phillips. Peter Ridley a further 8 seconds back. Andy Goodison a further 3 seconds back. Then at 8 seconds to Robert White in 15th. Theo Brunk is a further 5 seconds back. Though there is a potential battle for between Brunk and Kozak in that last lap. But Kozak looking very slow at this stage of the race. Looks like he's got some severe damage to his right rear of his race car. However, for Diego Comini, he is on the final run now. He comes into Stavolo for the final time. He worked himself out of Stavolo for the final time. Fred Joseph just pulls his car all the way out of the way to the right-hand side as he worked himself down into Blanchimont for the final time in this race. There's nothing between him and the flag now except for lining that car up down into the bus stop chicane for what will be the final time in this race. Team GT have dominated here, and their lead driver, Diego Comini, comes out of the bus stop chicane. He will do the famous wiggles as he wins the 4th round of the ESRA Rally Championship powered by GT Omega Racing. Coming home second, Team GT's Amando Palumbo. Coming home in the 3rd position, Team GT's Andre Messiah, a Team GT sweep here today at Circuit at Spa-Francorchamps. Aaron Nom comes home 4th. David Ward, he just comes past the start-finish line now. He comes home in the 5th position on the racetrack. Thomas Van Boessel, he's further 15 seconds back, but he will round off a horrible day there for Infinity Esports. And who would have thought at the end of this race, the highest placed Infinity Esports driver classified 6th in the race. Sasso Prousum comes home, and he comes home in the 7th position. Rens Broekman, a disappointing day for him. He comes home in the 8th position. And let's not forget, at the start of this race, you had 2 Infinity Esports cars scored in the top 5 in qualifying. And the highest position is lower than that. The highest position for an Infinity Esports car, that is 6th place in the race. However, the only thing you can really talk about is the absolute dominance of Team GT. Just waiting for the last of the cars to come past the start-finish line, by the way. You've got a couple of guys who have not yet finished their lap. And as soon as we do that, we'll run through your final race results. Robert White, who's circulating in the 15th position, just bringing his car down towards the bus stop chicane for the final time. David Brunk is bringing his car towards the bus stop chicane for the final time. And then Oliver Kosak is a further 2 seconds back on the racetrack. Doesn't look as though we had any of the fuel issues that I was worried about here. Looks like all the guys had plenty of fuel to bring their car home in this race. But as I say, it is a Team GT day. And as all the cars finish the race, I am getting word that perhaps Andy Goodison might have run out of fuel. He just finishes 1 lap down the end. Something might have happened to Andy Goodison, but we'll get confirmation of that in just a couple of moments. Let's run through your final race results then. Diego Comini, 46 minutes 22 seconds was the difference between lights out and him getting victory in the number 21 Team GT car. Emmanuel Palumbo, the 2nd Team GT driver, in 2nd. Andre Messiah, the 3rd Team GT driver, comes home in the 3rd position. So a full Team GT podium sweep here today. Aaron on 4th, David Ward 5th, Thomas Van Boessel 6th, Sasso Prousum in 7th, Rens Broekman in 8th, Danny Heckins in 9th, Peter Jensen in 10th, Andre Brunandi runs out in the 11th position. Nick Phillips in 12th, Peter Ridley 13th, Robert White 14th, Theo Brook in 15th, Oliver Kozak in the 16th position. Last guy scored on the lead lap. Then Andy Goodison, Thomas Votbach, Leonard Lasur, and Lorenzo Gobetti rounds out your top 20. Rest of the results coming up on your screen momentarily. And I'm going to talk to my good friend David Ward very quickly before we go off there. David, interesting race, shall we say. Number 69 car qualified himself in the 7th position. A great run to the race. However, I think it was on lap number 2, you just caught the inside part of Radion, got yourself a slowdown penalty, and from there, it was a kind of finding a way to make your day up.
I absolutely hate Spa. I don't even know why people like this track. It's horrible. But yeah, back to the race. Yeah, that kind of screwed it up because I was chasing Nom and we were kind of battling. We were having a really good battle. It was like some good defending. Then like once I ran wide, it was really difficult. And then I cooked my tyres, so I had to change them in the pits. And me and we both came into the pits at the same time. And yeah, he got away from me then, and I thought, well, I'm a little bit faster. I might have time to catch him up, and yeah, I just couldn't do it. There just wasn't enough time. But yeah, really good race. Pleased with the result, considering how much I don't like this track. So yeah, well done to all the guys on the podium as well. Really good race.
You're right, you never have liked this track. And I mean, I think back to your GlacierTV broadcasting nuss, and the first thing that, of course, comes into my head is you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, your incident for Freak Manzar back in the Super Cup. But, I mean, you had that issue before the run down to Poole. How much did that actually damage your race car?
Yeah, not too much. It did end up like tweaking the steering wheel a little bit, but you know you can drive around that if it's not too bad. But yeah, I usually notice it right on the straights when you're in the corners. It's fine.
And you're finally good to leave Spa-Francorchamps. 2 weeks time, we do it all again. I actually have no idea where we are in 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, dude. Let me stall while I look this up.
Wait. You don't know either. Give me 1 minute. We'll do this very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm just having a very quick... So, yeah, so you're very glad to say have left Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. Of course, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to head over to the Canadian Tires Motorsport Park for the 5th round of the season. Now, that's actually a very interesting track because of the fact it's a high downforce track. We all know how bad the bumps can be at Mosport. We'll call it Mosport for the time being. It could be a very hard race, and these guys are going to have to set their cars up differently to what they've done for the rest of the season. Completely
different. I've never driven here in the DP, so it's going to be an interesting. I've done it in the Corvette.
I was about to say, did you run the ISOWC race at Mosport?
Yes, I did do it in the IndyCar.
Yeah, you remember when we had like 7 different people blow up an engine or something?
Yeah, that was when they brought in that transmission bounce or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never driven it in the DP, but I have driven a downforce car there, so I can't really complain too much, and I can't use it as an excuse, can I? Not really, no. Tell you what, 4 rounds left of the championship. We're halfway through the season, and the next 4 rounds, as I say, in 2 weeks' time, 5th of November, it'll be bonfire night. It will be the Canadian Tires Motorsport Park. We can call it Mosport if we want, who cares. Same time, same place, of course. Then the next 3 races after that, Barber Motorsports Park on November the 19th, December the 3rd, at Okayama. Of course, some people might remember that as TI80 are hosting the Pacific Grand Prix in 1994, 1995. And then we finish the race at Silverstone, December the 17th. Of course, all the races will be here. They will be live on GlacierTV. This has been a GlacierTV presentation of the European Sim Racing Association Rally Championship powered by GT Omega Racing. One more time, in 2 weeks, we'll be at the Canadian Tires Motorsport Park. 45 minutes of action, very different to Spa. Traffic will be interesting once again, and we'll be here for the entire race. For myself, Will Vincent, Jan Matikayan, we'll see you all in a fortnight. Goodbye.